Alright, one more attempt at squishing my thoughts on Star Wars into a relatively small video. Earlier today I did a 30-minute thing about the 9 numbered episodes of Star Wars. The Anakin Skywalker saga. And alright, I know I'm taking a long time to get started because there's a lot of live action stuff that was added and some animated stuff that was added. So I think I'm just gonna start listing the series and saying something sort of quick about each of them. Let's start with animated Clone Wars. I know there was Genndy Tartakovsky. I'm not sure I'm saying that right, but there was a sort of a Samurai Jack version of the Clone Wars animated series. I saw them once. I don't know. Cool, stylized, but I don't really remember content very well about them. And then we have the Clone Wars animated series, and overall I like it a lot because it's essentially what should have been called Ahsoka. Like, it's the story of Ahsoka. And it's her story as she grows up as a Padawan through the Clone Wars. And if you watched my previous thing, you understand that I don't really like the definition of the Clone Wars that we got. It was not about clones. Could have been called the Droid Wars. Should have been called the Separatist Wars, but what we should have gotten was the Clone Wars, which to me means, my favorite option would have been if they had made it about the fact that cloning for specific tasks is slavery. It is using living things that can still think and feel and hope as property. And so what it should have been is that the Separatists were those whose economies depended on cloning for labor, and they didn't want to give that up. And the good guys were the ones trying to end slavery. And so I think Lucas got it completely backwards, where the Jedi would not be on the side that was using clone soldiers, which is a step worse because these living, thinking beings never had a choice and were forced into life-threatening situations. Never given a choice, really. So Clone Wars animated series had that massive flaw to overcome, where it should have been the Separatists that were using clone soldiers and the good guys using droid soldiers, because it's quick and easy to stand up as a military in a setting where technology is that advanced. So anyway, let's ignore for a moment that Lucas didn't bother addressing the issue of slavery of droids, because his droids are apparently sentient. But assuming droids are not sentient, that would have been a better thing to put on the side of the Jedi. So, yeah, Clone Wars animated series had a really broken foundation to start with. And so it has that flaw, but the stories they tell are pretty good for the most part. There's a thing in season 3 that I very strongly disagree with that addresses the nature of the Force, and the first time I tried watching the series, I couldn't get past that part. I stopped watching at that point because I was so infuriated at the choice the writer made. But then the next time I went through, I watched it and forced myself to go past that point. And there's another wonky thing with Yoda and the Force, finding out how to turn into a Force ghost, but whatever. Like, they already made the mistake with the other problem, or with the other Force thing. Alright, this motorcycle should be able to accelerate faster than me. Thank you. We're getting on a highway. We're supposed to be going faster. Alright. Let's see. Sorry, I have to pay attention to the driving. Okay. So, aside from the massive foundational flaw and the stupid choices around the Force made a couple of times, it is a good story of the Clone Wars through the eyes of Ahsoka. She's, in my opinion, the main character. And we get to see the clones as she understands them. And they even talk a little bit about how it's weird that the Jedi are using them as soldiers. And there's a storyline about like just an almost Sith mindset Jedi who just doesn't care if clones die and uses them as military hardware instead of as, people. Well, treats them as hardware instead of as treating them as people. And there's a little bit of a commentary on how the Jedi Order was broken. And that's okay, except if the Jedi Order was the way I think it should have been in the prequels, that storyline wouldn't have made sense. And yes, I acknowledge that there is the fall of the Jedi, and Vader hunts and kills most of them. So there has to have been something, but what we were given sucked. So yeah, Clone Wars did okay with what it was given to start from, but I have a hard time recommending it wholeheartedly because it is stuck with the bad foundation that the prequels gave it. Yeah. Anyway, so that's probably the big one because it was earlier than the other shows, and things like Rebels leaned on it pretty heavily. So I'll mention Rebels next, and that was an entertaining story. It was neat to focus on. Sorry, cars slowing down really fast. It's before 4 o'clock. This should not be rush hour traffic already. And I'm coming to a stop. Lovely. Okay, I guess I have a little bit more time to talk. So yeah, Rebels, fun story. Tried to use Ahsoka again. Made some stupid choices around the nature of the Force again. Like, why is it that there's like another plane of existence, that time doesn't matter. So like, it's like they were trying to introduce time travel into it. And if I'm not mistaken, if I understood it well when I was watching it, they use the time travel a little bit to well, all right, if you haven't seen it yet, it's going to be a spoiler in the next few seconds. They use the time travel to save Ahsoka. All right, we're back to normal. So Rebels does some things that I don't agree with, but the stories again are good. The characters are pretty good. Worth watching, and it explains a bunch of things that crept into some of the movies that came out. Specifically, in this case, Solo. Was that in Rebels or was that in Clone Wars? Uh-oh. Well, either way, Solo is a reasonable next step. I think it was both in Clone Wars and Rebels. So, yeah. There's a lot to watch, and some of it is obnoxious, but there's a lot of it that's really good, and I think it's worth watching Clone Wars and Rebels. Now, Solo, I wish they had done it as the first live-action TV series. Cramming all of the well-known story points of Solo's life into one movie was a huge mistake. Like his time on Corellia, how he met Chewbacca and saved him, leading to their strong friendship. That's all there. And then how he met Lando, how he got the Millennium Falcon. Like, these are all things that should have been stretched out. Like, we didn't need all of it. Like, these are the things we already knew about Han Solo, and they just kind of tied them together in a story that fit into a movie. It's like, oh, okay, so I didn't learn anything new, except for the weird romantic interest that, and I like the actress, but like, her character wasn't necessary. We didn't need a romance story for Han. Like, sure, normal people have them in their lives, but it took time in the movie, and we could have just thought, oh, okay, he is doing things outside of what we're seeing, and we're just hearing the important parts of the story. Or they could have just made it into a TV series. Give us a cool intro to Han Solo. It's just him, no one else, none of the other well-known characters. And maybe the first few episodes are about how he grew up on Corellia and how he ended up joining the Empire to escape, I guess. And then later episodes show him encountering, like, not necessarily as part of a big battle, but just like a Wookiee that has been captured, and they're like joking and talking about how worthless its life is, and how maybe they'll just send him to a labor camp. Like, people being horrid people in the Empire, racist assholes that don't care about you unless you're also a human, because that's what the Empire is. It's a humans only club. That's why Thrawn was such a big deal when the books were originally written in the 90s. Yeah, so anyway, Solo could have been a series, and we could have seen so much more cool stuff about his story, and it would be a known limited series, because at some point, you know, he's working for Jabba, he's doing smuggling runs, and like we get to see Han as the scoundrel he was. No one's ever really stuck their neck out for him, so it's just him and Chewie, along with, you know, some acquaintances that aren't out to kill him necessarily, like Lando. And the last few episodes address the crazy shipment that Han had to drop to avoid being... Actually, that's an interesting thing, too. I guess the Empire didn't have really good records about who he was and how he kind of ditched them to save Chewbacca. Yeah, but anyway, I would have liked to have seen that time of Han's life played out, where he is working for Jabba. He's doing sketchy things. He's not noble. He is working for money so that he and Chewie can survive. And he's got people like Greedo in his life who are obviously awful. Why would he stick his neck out for anyone? Why would he try to do good things? And then his character arc in the original trilogy gets that little extra bit of meaning and support, where this eternal optimist Luke Skywalker, who he thinks he's getting, like, he thinks he's pulling one over on Luke and Obi-Wan to get the amount of money that he wanted, and he starts to see people who are willing to risk themselves for others. It's like, holy crap, this is something I've never seen before. And he discovers that that's something he likes. And for these people who are willing to risk themselves for him, he's willing to risk himself too. And Han's character arc becomes amazing. So I think Solo, the actors did fine with what they were given, but Solo was a huge missed opportunity. Again, loss of potential is what I'm lamenting. So, I mean, sure, go see Solo. It was okay, but leaves me feeling like they missed an opportunity here. So let's just switch over to the other standalone movie, Rogue One, which I also think they made a huge mistake with and missed an opportunity for. It's another one that should have been a TV series. Characters were engaging. I cried at parts of the movie. They did a good job of making it emotionally engaging. Good character-driven events. But the framework, the foundation of Rogue One was done wrong. Like, there shouldn't have been an engineer that built a weakness in and then just left his daughter to handle it. Like, he had a relationship with Saw Gerrera. He could have just told Saw about the weakness and like, hey, I've been building this in. Here you go. Yeah, anyway, so that premise was bad, and we already have the idea that spies stole the plans to begin with. Why, instead of making it into an action movie, make it into a spy thriller show, where we get to see. Actually, it should have been a lot like Andor. I mean, maybe even like Andor probably should have been the show. Except it shouldn't have been called Andor because the show is not focused on Andor. It's the show of the beginning of the rebellion. So it should be called something like Rise of the Rebellion or something along those lines. Now, like the Death Star was the first big hit that the rebellion accomplished. Oh, why? So what? There's a police car stopped at the side of the road. Anyway, so they should have just done the Andor series, shown us how the rebellion was growing, and at some point somebody stumbles across, actually, you know what, that guy that was part of the rebellion, whose name I can't remember, that just wanted to do the right thing, and was chasing Andor because he thought Andor murdered people and he should be held accountable for that. That guy should have noticed the problems with the Empire. Oh, come on, really? Why are you going so slow? Anyway, and he should have contacted Andor and said, there's something I think you need to know. There's this space station. I think I can get the plans. I need you to help me get out with them. And like the last episode of the Andor series would essentially be the space of time that Rogue One covered as time, as the time frame. And I think that gives us a much bigger I need to adjust this, and it's going to have to be the last thing I talk about in this video because I'm near my destination. That Imperial and Andor stealing the plans should not happen at the end of the series, because in episode 4 we are given the impression that Vader has been hunting the plans for a while. So we need a reason why the plans couldn't be transmitted, and we know data can be transmitted across the galaxy at much faster than the speed of light. You know, it's hyperspace communications or something. And we know that because the Emperor and Vader talk to each other across star systems using that holographic communications thing, and that was real time. So it is possible to send data across great distances almost instantly. So yeah, we need kind of an explanation for why the plans couldn't be sent. Maybe communications network, like there have to be like stations that relay the information, sort of like cell towers, and those were controlled by the Empire, so the rebels couldn't transmit it because they couldn't use the cell tower network, something like that. And they had to hand carry it, and there have to be, of course, reasons why they didn't just make their first jump to the rebels. So yeah, things need to be figured out, but that way we can have some time with Vader hunting for those plans. And then the last episode gets to be the one where Leia gets the plans, maybe at a diplomatic summit. She was actually on a diplomatic mission for Alderaan, and they used that as cover to hand off the plans, and she was going to bring it to the rebels along with Obi-Wan. And like Vader catches on, but we don't need that massive battle and the split-second timing. So yeah, Rogue One and Andor, both plenty of good stuff in them, but should have been done drastically differently. Yeah, okay. So anyway, end of my second video. I'm probably going to have to get back into talking about the shows for the third one. Thanks for listening.